Most people believe our gender is limited to being just male or female, but this is not the case. Like most things about us, our gender is infinitely variable, and how masculine or feminine each of us feels is dependent on where each of us sits on this scale. If your biological sex matches where you are on the gender scale, then you won't notice any effects. In fact, you might not even have thought about your gender before. If, however, the gender that you feel is the opposite to your biological sex, then the effect felt can be very strong indeed. The common term for the 1 in 20 individuals whose gender is different to their biological sex is transgender. There's 3 factors that determine who you are and how you develop. Our chromosomes determine our biological sex at conception. People with XX chromosomes are biologically female. Those with XY chromosomes are male. Our genes determine the map of who we could potentially be, how tall we could be, our build, the colour of our hair, and how masculine and feminine each part of our bodies could potentially be. The actual thing that drives us to reach that genetic maximum is our hormones. How masculine or feminine our bodies and minds are is determined by the amount of testosterone, male hormone, and estrogen, female hormone, we receive at the various stage of mind and body development, and that each part of our bodies is receptive to and reacts to. While in the womb, if the mother supplies more testosterone to the fetus, regardless of whether it is biologically male or female, it will develop more masculine features. Likewise, if it receives more estrogen, then it will be more feminine. In addition, if an area of our body is more or less receptive to these hormones, then the amount it develops can widely vary. We see this hormonal variation every day in people's faces. Women's faces range from extremely feminine to masculine, and likewise, men's facial features show the same range, but because it's every day, most people don't notice and think nothing of it. But what about the variation we can't see? The generic medical models of men and women's brains, while fundamentally the same, have significant differences, and areas that determine touch, pain, sight, smell, and hearing are all different and vary in size and function. While this generic model of men's and women's brains is helpful for understanding how the brain works, the reality is different. Recent studies have shown only 8% of individuals fit the stereotyped models. Everyone else, 92%, has a brain that in at least one area is more like the opposite biological sex than would be expected. Our knowledge of how the brain works and develops is increasing, and we are establishing the areas of the brain that are responsible for our higher level thought process, such as our sense of self, our sexuality, and gender. In transgender individuals, it is now believed that the areas of the brain that are responsible for feelings of gender have simply developed in a way opposite to that expected for their biological sex. While research into aspects of how our bodies and brain work and develop is ongoing, what we do now know is that differences in gender, including being transgender, are not a choice or a lifestyle. They're not a fetish or result of how the individual has been raised, but a perfectly natural variation of being human. With this new understanding of this, we should accept that society's misconception and alienation of transgender individuals and the way we force those individuals to hide and conform to rules that cause so much harm to them and their families is the real problem that we need to resolve.